Coming up on this episode, I'm thinking about why we keep going. Like, on a personal level, when all is said and done, why do we keep pushing on in life? And what fuels us through it? So, let's get into it and what's going on, beautiful people? This is the Perspective Chasers podcast, and I'm your host, John. On this episode, I want to talk about why we keep going. And it may sound bleak, but there's value in delving into the simple question of why we keep going. Look, I'd be lying if I sat here and told you I've never laid in my bed and thought why am I bothering? Why keep going? And it's not a pleasant thought, don't get me wrong, but it is an important one. Because in that moment I realised whether I'd done something or not, life was going to happen. It's going to happen to me and it's going to happen around me. No matter what I do, if I choose to take no action, it's going to happen. If I choose to take an action, it's still going to happen. But I might have a little bit of a say in it. So laying there, just doing nothing, letting the world move around me, wasn't going to help anything. I had to get up and take action if I wanted to take control of things. Now, that kind of realization that no matter how I felt in that moment, no matter how much I wanted something, no matter how much I felt entitled to something or needed something or however else you want to look at it, it wasn't ever going to come to me unless I got up and done something about it. It could have been right at my front door. I'd have still had to get up and go to the front door to get it. But at those times when you're asking yourself those questions, when you feel that low that you are wondering why keep going, that front door could feel a mile away. But again, take the time in that moment to realize why you're there. Because it is sad that no matter what happens to us or no matter what happens to the people in our lives and everything else, eventually we will all be grains of dust. But at the same time, there is a beauty in that the life isn't infinite. It's finite and therefore appreciated far more. At least sometimes. It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of life that you forget to appreciate life for what it is. And that kind of, I suppose that does tie into why we keep going, because life is always going to happen, as I say. Well, no, should have put a pause in there. Life is always going to happen. And as I say, whether you take action or not, it's not going to matter to life. It's going to matter to you, but it's not going to matter to life. So take those actions, do the things that you want to bring into your life, because they're out there. Life exists in all of its variations, positive, negative, and everything in between. It's all out there for you to witness or manifest. Whatever it is, it can be done. But you have to put in the effort. If you want to lead a better life, you have to put in the effort to lead it. You can't just stumble your way into a better life. And if you do, fair enough. But what happens if you lose it? You'll never know how to get it back. So actually taking the time to learn life, learn the skills of life, learn what makes life tick, learn what makes you tick. Learn when it is time to kind of take some time and step back and think about your life as a whole. And when it's time to put your nose to the grindstone. Life has many variations. And to say that a life is good or a life is bad, that's a very big statement. Parts of life can be good or bad. But a life in its entirety, that's harder to say. So experience what you can, because you're always going to exist in the moment. Although you'll look at it as your life will only ever exist in the moment. And then you look back and you'll have the story of your life. But your life, is in the moment. If you stop existing in the moment, they say your life ends. So bring yourself back to it. Stop living life disconnected from yourself. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to throw stones. When I do these episodes, I'm very much talking to myself as much as I am talking to everybody and nobody. Like, there are times in which just thinking out loud helps me process things and give myself advice. And again, that's another important life skill that I've picked up along the way, and it helps me. But take that time to realize that whether you choose to do nothing, life is still going to happen. So it's easier to choose to do something. Don't get me wrong, sometimes just existing is easier, and it is nice to take the kind of foot off the gas and just roll with the tide. But you can't live your whole life like that. Again, it's always that story of finding balance, that journey to equilibrium. So take your foot off the gas every now and then, and put your nose to the grindstone other times. But be wise enough to know when. That's literally probably the best advice I could give to myself or anybody, is learn when to take your foot off the gas and when to put your foot on it. Because life always is going to happen regardless. Sometimes you're going to have to work for life to be at the level it is, which means you're not going to be able to focus on the roses and all of the pretty stuff around you. You've just got to focus on what's in front of you. And that's fair enough, but that's not going to be all the time. So just taking that time to learn that skill is valuable. But it's still, I still come back to the question of like, why keep going? Because again, it's easier not to, but it's nowhere near as fun. Like, when you're doing something, when you're going places, when you're on an adventure, whether it be a physical adventure or just an adventure through life and life experiences, like, that's fun, at least for me anyway. Like, it excites my curiosity and makes me feel giddy. So when I feel like I'm traveling down a new path of life and finding out new things and discovering new things, it makes me excited and giddy. Whereas if I was to just lay there and let life happen to me, I wouldn't get all of that positive feeling, that feeling of giddiness, of excitement, of happiness, of accomplishment, of whatever else comes along with it. Like, so I suppose that's the biggest catalyst, is when you actually take action, there is something to at least be proud of, or at least take accountability for, good or bad. Like, if you're laying there and just letting life happen to you, okay, cool, you can put your hands up and say, like, it's not my fault. Alright, cool, but at the same time, it's not your fault that it didn't happen either. You took no action to stop anything from happening or allow life to be any better. So, just as much as, or just as bad as not doing anything, I messed that one up, but anyway, my mind's a little bit faded, but we go on. Like, I suppose to bring it kind of a bit more down to earth, like even yesterday, I was just like, why? Why go on? Why keep doing this? Why put in the effort in general? Just why? Today I've woken up and I at least know why again. Because it's fun, because it's exciting. When I sit down to do the pod and start thinking about life and all of the variations and everything else, my mind starts churning and things get exciting again. I feel a bit more invigorated, just like when I go to the gym. Like, once my body starts moving and you actually start flexing your muscles and moving your body and stretching out and blah 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 blah, you actually start to feel pretty good. So when same thing for the mind. So when you start sitting there and thinking about life and thinking about like, well, actually, why do I go on? Like, and again, part of it's autopilot. I'm not gonna lie to you. For myself, part of what I do is simply just autopilot. It's a routine that I've built where it's you get up, you do this, you don't ask no questions. That kind of accounts for a lot of life. And at times it kind of accounted for all of my life, especially when I was more of a workaholic. But these days, because of little one and things like, well, because of little one, I have more fixed routines. I have things that I have to kind of dial back in for, or I have somebody that I have to care for, so I have to be dialed in. I can't just like check out and go on autopilot and just work and go home, work and go home, work and go home. I have to think about somebody else. I have to think about other things in the world, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong, there was a time that I'd have argued it's a bad thing, but again, it's an easy why. Like when you've got children or you've got somebody depending on you, that's why you go on, because somebody's depending on you. But it's a shallow why, I'm not gonna lie. I might get some hate for saying that, but it is like, obviously my daughter's got a mum and there's inevitably a world of people that could care for her if something ever happened to me. Would they do it the way that I done it? No, but it could still be done. So realistically, like if I'm looking at my life and my life journey, I have to look at why do I go on? Why do I exist? What input or what imprint am I going to leave on the world once I'm gone? Because I'm only here for a finite amount of time. So if I don't make my mark, then I'll just turn to that distant thought, distant memory, or a grain of dust that much faster. And I quite like to stick around for a little bit. So, I mean, I just think it's hard not to think about life. Like, it is easy to just lay there and just breathe and exist and consume food and just bleh. But again, there's no fun in it. Like, and even then, like, how much is that tolerable because we've got things that make it so? For example, entertainment, gaming, or whatever else. Would you be as inclined to just lay there and do nothing if there was no distractions? If you simply was laying there in silence, doing nothing, thinking about why you keep going on? Some of us would go crazy. Like, solitary confinement's a punishment for a reason. But some of us would reach new heights of enlightenment. Like, to actually sit there in silence and think about what your purpose is in life. Not necessarily what you have to give life, but more so what you want to give life or what you can give life. Like, ironically, there's always been a joke that I could talk for England. And I never thought it would have had a place, but nowadays when I do the podcast and that, it flickers up every now and then and goes, one day maybe. But the thing is, like, regardless, I enjoy talking. I enjoy having in-depth conversations with people, both serious and funny, or whatever else. Like, I think there's so much to benefit from communicating with people, from conversating with people, from just having that interaction. Where it's like, you learn about them, you learn about their life and people around them and how they view the world, how they see things. Like, there are so many possibilities in life that experiencing some of them vicariously through others can be great. But I think we do that far more these days with fictional characters than non-fictional characters. I hope I ain't got those two confused while I've been saying that. Anyway, it's a technicality if I did shut up. But we often get these things in life confused because we're paying attention to things that are so disassociated from our own lives that sometimes bringing it in the realm of reality, sometimes it's overwhelming, but sometimes it's needed. Like, you can't live your life with your head in the clouds all the time. So you need to have those serious thoughts. You need to ask yourself the serious questions. Ask yourself why you go on, what you want to do with your life, what you want to leave once you're gone. Do you mind just fading quickly into the distance, or do you want to be remembered? Do you want to leave a legacy and stick around? Either or is fine, but as long as it's your choice, and act on it. Because if you want to leave a legacy, it's within your power. You just have to take the action. If you would happily live a simple life and just enjoy that and let it be and fade away, that's within your power too. Nobody should dictate to you how you should live your life. But you should be encouraged to go out there and live life for you, which I don't think is done often enough these days. More often than not, people, at least from the life that I've experienced, people are pushed into a system that they are told works, and that is life. But there's far more ways to make life work. Life exists in many forms all around the world, all through the galaxy, whether we found it or not, all through the universe and solar systems, and probably even further than that. We can only comprehend and contextualize so much. So don't let yourself get kind of pigeonholed into thinking like this is all of our understandings and what we know now or what we experience now is all that can be. That probably couldn't be further from the truth. Like, there was a time before fire that they thought that was all that life could be. Then they discovered fire and thought, wow, how amazing is this? Now look at us with iPhones and electric cars and satellites galore, whatever else. Like, life's going to keep going on regardless whether you lay there or whether you take action. So you might as well take some action, do something, leave a legacy, write a story, have fun. Like, if anything, you owe it to yourself. It come up you on the roll of the dice, so go for it. Like, you've got the opportunity to experience life in many ways. Take the action to it. Go for it. Like, and again, you might not end up making the decisions or having the options that you want, but there'll be a way to make it work. There'll be a compromise. If you look hard enough, if you sit there in silence and you think about it long enough, you'll find the answer. But there's so many distractions offered in the meantime. So it's more a game of, can you fight off the distractions long enough to figure out your way? Or are you going to get stuck in the cycle with everybody else? Because not everybody's going to find their way. Some people will stay stuck in the loop for their whole life. Is that really going to be you? Do you want it to be you? If so, fair enough. If not, do something about it. I'm going to wrap this one up. The seed for this episode is going to be ask yourself why you go on. That simple question. And don't come up with a surface answer. Don't come up with friends, relationships, children. Let all of that go. That's all superficial stuff. That's all surface level. When everybody else is gone, when it's just you in a room on your own, why take that next breath? Why? Why keep fighting to be alive? Why keep fighting to be you? Why keep fighting to experience? And really try to come up with a decent answer to that question. For myself, the quickest answer would probably be curiosity. Like, I want to know so much about life, so much about the universe and everything in between, that as soon as I get that moment and I'm offered a chance to experience something or discover something, I'm invigorated again. And it's an easy why for me. Like I say, I'm just curious. I just want to know what makes people tick, what makes the world tick, what makes the universe tick. But if I go through my whole life and I just answer those questions, I'd say I kind of enjoyed my time. Like I say, it invigorates me and makes me feel good, so that would be my life well spent, I guess. Anyway, I'll leave it there. All the best. I'll catch you on the next one.